Okay, looks like the feed has engaged, and I think we're live. Permitting. Oh, yep, I see us. We're live. Okay, so hey, welcome everybody. We're here covering Star Trek: The Original Series here on our Ted Trek 60s Rewatch podcast series, which is all about my dad, Ted Mater, and my brother's dad, of course, who is with him right there. I'm Dave Mater, and we have Jeff Mater and Ted Mater coming to us also here tonight. We don't have our other two correspondents with us, Adam and Jody. They both.
This is one of the guys at the end of the show.
That's one of the witches. Yeah, but we're covering Catspaw, which is I consider it the first episode of season 2, although it did sort of air later on. It was definitely the first production episode of season 2, and it is the first appearance of Chekhov. And as you can tell by his use of the wig in this episode. So we're hoping that you've also seen the episode and you'll be able to kind of follow on with our conversation. Each week we take an original series episode and sort of break it all down, and not in any particular order, just kind of what we want to talk about next. And we're as mentioned, we're talking about Catspaw, which is an episode that I watched a lot when I was a kid. I think it was the original series episode that I think I watched. We had it recorded on VHS for some reason when I was really young, and I think I watched this over and over again. And because this episode is set very much in a castle, ghosts, witches, Halloween context, because it aired at Halloween, October of 1967. It's very much in that imagery. I think maybe that's why I gravitated towards. But hey, I've talked enough. Let's go over to my dad, Ted Mater. Dad, Catspaw, what do you think?
Well, it was an interesting episode.
Yeah.
A little hokey at times, but it was an interesting episode.
Mm-hmm.
There was some strange things going on in that episode.
There really was. This episode is fun, but also, I don't know. Jeff, would you say that this is Star Trek at its best, original series at its best, or at its worst, or somewhere in the between?
It had somewhere in between.
Yeah,
I would say. I would.
What was your if you had to say what was the episode's greatest strength?
I would say the writing, actually, as much as like the show. This episode has a bit of both. It has the hokey fights, and but it also has like an interesting mystery throughout the whole episode, which I kind of like when the original series does this. Like, I'd much rather watch an episode like this than when they go to like the Nazi planet or like there's less mystery. Like in those kind of episodes, like it's pretty straightforward. They figure it out. Whereas this one, like you're kind of like wondering like what's going on the whole episode. Why why is there all this imagery? Why are these things from a different planet? How did they get here? Why don't they understand like what's going on in like what Earth history is or like anything like that? Like they're just kind of like working off like Kirk's mind, like Spock says, which I understand why they don't do any Vulcan stuff.
They're able to enter, so they're somewhat telepathic. These two aliens who are the antagonists of this episode, Korob and Sylvia, I believe are their names, and we at the very end we see that they're just two little, I don't know,
they look like turkeys.
Little turkey sprite things that are not very big, but they have incredible mental telepathic powers, and they can kind of create any illusion around you. They do have powers, but they've sort of lured the Enterprise crew here because Scotty and Sulu and this other guy Jackson, they were all on an away mission, presumably to this planet they never tell us why, but they just were, and so they come looking for them. And initially Jackson's the guy who dies. Like Jackson is the guy who beams up because he says, "Oh, just beam me up, Captain." He says, "Well, where's everybody else?" And he doesn't really answer. And when he materializes on the transporter pad, he just collapses right away. And then we get this warning: "There's a curse on your ship," and everything else. Apparently, they say that was a test by the aliens to see if they would show loyalty to coming after their crew. Why that was important, I'm not clear. But that's apparently but that's exactly what they do, because Spock, Kirk, and McCoy all have to beam down and kind of figure out what happened to Jackson, where are Sulu and Scotty, and what do they do now? And then they're kind of in this that's the Catspaw. Sulu and Scotty are the Catspaws. They are the named they are the bait, I suppose, from these two aliens. And can we just Sylvia and Korob, because we meet Korob first. No, actually, we technically meet Sylvia first because Sylvia is in the form of a cat when they first enter this old, creepy castle. Sorry, and I shouldn't bury the lead. They also, before they get to the castle, they meet three witches who are in the background here. If you're watching us on the video version, the first witch, the second witch, and the third witch, and they're Captain Kirk, turn back.
It almost seems like a cartoon. I was getting Scooby-Doo vibes quite a bit throughout the whole episode. Which...
It is the Scooby-Doo episode. This is Star Trek Scooby-Doo because it none of it's real ghosts. None of this is real like magic or supernatural, but it appears as such. And as we alluded to, these aliens, these two aliens are sort of behind everything. They can enter the subconscious of the mind, and that's where they have pulled all this ghost and skeletons and castle imagery from. But they don't read minds directly. Like they don't. That right? Yes,
I believe so.
Yes,
I believe so.
Meow.
Meow. Yeah, Enzo would be proud.
Looks like Lucy. Rich's cat.
Right.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. Like, I think the episode's like watchable. It's never like boring. The dialogue is actually really well written for something that's so ridiculous. But like always, Kirk tries to have sex of his way out of this.
Right. This is after Spock explains that she's like that the two aliens are very alien. Like they are not anything like humans because obviously they kind of allude to the fact that they are in alien form, or that this new form has given them new sensations and feelings and all these other things that they weren't anticipating.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like Adam's joining us. It just looks like he's getting his camera set up. And where was I? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But like, yeah, that
what is the purpose
that
of
he's trying that he tries to seduce her to get out of it, right? But like, so what I was trying to say is like he doesn't know what she really is, right?
No.
What he has no idea. Oh,
No,
let's get him
but
in here.
Kirk always is willing to go for it when it comes to. That's his first mindset. Is that's the best way to get out of this is if I seduce the female, and then
And if you're just joining us, we're just being joined by our correspondent Adam Woodward.
Hello.
Welcome, Adam. Hello.
Sorry from late here, guys.
Sorry, yeah. Like with these new Facebook schedules, I have to start the stream on time. My apologies.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But welcome. We're talking Catspaw, and we're only a few minutes into this conversation, Adam. So welcome.
Thank you.
And just like initial, like high level, what's your take on this episode?
I had a hard time with this one. I found it very slow pace. I think I walked into the seduction conversation, and that was good. Didn't love it. So I'll join as you guys have already started. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's been sort of a mixed reaction so far as well because, like, Jeff had pointed out that the writing was strong, but Dad had pointed out that it was a bit hokey in parts, and I can't disagree. Although I do think that the performances are good by everybody involved. I guess it's whether or not how you gravitate towards the Sylvia and Korob characters as they're written. And I always found them interesting, but what I was explaining is that I sort of have a bias towards this episode because when I was a kid, we had this on VHS for some reason, and I watched it over and over and over again. It was really my like original series gateway episode. And because I think it had magic, it had all these like things that I didn't really understand it. Like watching it tonight, which is the first time I've watched it in a long time, that I look at it completely differently now. Now it's all about like how are they solving the mystery? How are they solving the science of it? Who are these aliens? But back then it was like Kirk had met a wizard and a black cat witch or something, right? And I was like, oh, this is fun and interesting, kind of a crossover of genres. But
both things can be true.
Both things can be true. Yes. I don't know. Like even Korab as a character, I really like him because he's like this doofus, almost like a Fester Adams kind of a character, you know. And the dynamic between him and Sylvia is very strange because he's the boss, but she's more powerful. Is that what it was? And their dynamic because she's now in this form of human, I guess, or earlier she was a cat. Now she's a human. We got a shout out, Dad. Jim Edelston's going. He's calling you out, Teddy.
Yes. How are you, Jimmy?
Yes. And yeah, I don't know.
Thanks for asking.
Great. Okay. Well, what did you guys think of like these two guest stars, like Korab, and just in terms of how they acted it out?
I kept just thinking about what I'm going to do for Star Trek Radio Theater.
Right.
The whole episode. You know,
Okay.
So...
And as Ashley had alluded to in the Meow Meow, we are doing this episode next on Star Trek Radio Theater on Friday night. We're going to be all recreating this episode. I'm playing Kirk, and Jeff's playing. Who are you? You're Korab, Jeff, and also Scotty, which means you say like 2 words of Scotty.
What does he say in the episode? I just not much.
Not much. Well, we also have Michael Chan playing Sulu, who says even less. So that's gonna be fun. But Ashley's also gonna be playing Sylvia in both human and cat forms. No sound effects will be added. So that's exciting. So yeah, like I was definitely also looking at that and absorbing all that. But geez, I don't know, guys. Like
so my question really is that, you know, you started the episode off and crewman Jackson is calling for help and get me off the planet. Essentially, he comes up, he's dead, right? Or was dying.
She killed him with her mind.
Yeah, but did they say get away from this planet? It's cursed. Like, was that?
That was after. That was after he beamed up.
Okay. I don't think they were lured. I think like they were just there. The Enterprise shows up, and then they wanted to try and ensure nobody else would show up. So they did this whole like stay away, and they killed one person. Why? And then I think they're kind of bullshitting when they're saying like, oh, you know, we wanted you to see like how loyal you are, and like I don't think that was it. Like I think that was all crap. You know, like I think they just wanted nobody to come bother them on their planet, but they wanted to have fun with like their sensations or like their powers. They were having too much fun.
That wasn't their planet, and I'm still not clear on what their original mission was. Like they wanted information.
You mean Scotty and Sulu?
No. What were Korab and Sylvia's mission?
I don't think they had them. The mission was I think one of them wanted people to stay away, and the Sylvia wanted to have fun and screw with everybody. So they kind of had different opinions of what to do, and I think that's why Korab ends up like getting killed later, or like a door falls on him. And I think that's why, like, she's not like he wasn't the big bad guy. She was, because she was the one that was messing with them and was having fun with it. Whereas Korab seemed to be like wanting I think he wanted everyone to go away. That was my impression.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that she got, this could be fun. I'm taking over now, you know, and was really falling for Kirk until she goes, oh, I know what you're up to. But Can we just go back to the witches, which are on screen here? Because
the 3 witches. As all 3 will be played by Kevin Millard. We're working on that, but we'll see. But yes, we're. I think that maybe I'm going to suggest to Kevin that
this was fun. I enjoyed this part of the episode.
Captain Kirk, turn back, and just the makeup on them.
Witches. That would be my guess. He was trying to scare them.
Right. That was something he created. That was because he has the transmuter, the little magic wand, right? That they do most of the little tricks with. Yeah. And like just like the 3 witches. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's hokey.
It totally reminded me of Clash of the Titans, the original, you know, those 3 witches from that, if you remember that movie. No.
There were 3 witches in Clash of the Titans?
Oh yeah. They had the eye. You know, he had to get the eye. I'm talking about the original version.
Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington.
Oh no,
that's very different.
Okay. Anyhow,
Go and talk about the witches here though. Like there's clearly like quite a bit of occult imagery in this episode, right? Like they have the all-seeing eye on Korob's uniform or whatever he's wearing, right? You have a woman that turns into a black cat. You have 3 witches. They're going for a lot of occult stuff. Not even Halloween. Like they say trick or treat. They're saying Halloween a lot in this episode, but it's more like occult stuff. So it's there's a throne with a big like red thing right up to it. Like a lot of what they're doing is like occult stuff. So
I didn't live in this time, so I don't really understand what the imagery meant. But I just, when you said that, Jeff, I thought of like the Thriller music video from 1982, and there's like that whole disclaimer at the beginning with Michael Jackson where he says he doesn't believe in the occult or something. And why is that? Like, is this like more taboo? I guess it must have been. Like,
well, I mean, you got a lot of Christians in the U.S. who might be offended by that, right? But was this aired in October? It'd be kind of cool if it was like a Halloween episode.
It was. So even though it's the first episode of season 2, technically, like from a production standpoint, it aired later on, like in October, right? So, which made sense. But it's the first episode with Chekhov in it, as you can tell by his wig that he's wearing throughout this, that hairdo that he's got going on. It's not good. Yeah, and but it did air around Halloween, which is kind of cool because Star Trek hasn't done a lot of horror-esque, or at least not specifically Halloween themed. I think Voyager had kind of one, Jeff, if I'm remembering. Remember the one where Neelix is telling the ghost story in the cargo bay? Yeah. But like, there's generally they kind of stay away from this stuff. I think because maybe it doesn't fit, but
it does.
Is this the Scooby-Doo episode? Kinda, but I kind of like it. So anyway, and once they get in the castle with Korob and Sylvia, first they get led by the cat. They fall through the floor. They wake up in shackles with a plastic skeleton hanging next to them, and then the Sulu and Scotty show up and they're brainwashed. And once they kind of get through that, because Kirk and Spock try to make a move on them, right, as they're getting like their shackles taken off and they're being like sort of taken to meet with Korob, and they turn but Korob just flips it around because there's no real castle, right? Like it's like a big illusion. It's a big menagerie. Remember that episode? But when they finally like start talking to them, he gives them dinner, then he gives them jewels on a plate, but that doesn't work because Kirk won't have any of it. But then Sylvia then shows up at this point after she turns from cat to woman, and then they have the Enterprise hanging from the thread as they hang it over the candle, and it's burning up, and they call up to the ship, and up there we have this guy, Assistant Chief Engineer DeSalle, who I think is in a couple other episodes.
Is he okay?
He used to be a gold shirt before this. I think he's in like season 1 as a gold shirt, and then they've changed him to a red shirt by this point. Which also reminds me that Jackson is one of the few like non-red shirt guys who just gets killed, like nondescript guys. He's a gold shirt expendable, but isn't
it strange though that they picked this guy to do this role, yet Scotty has like a 1 or 2 lines and he just walks around like a zombie? Like, as an actor, don't you think like James Doohan and like George Takei probably thought like, hey, what the hell is going on here? Why is the new Chekhov kid getting the lines and this assistant DeSalle guy getting to run the ship? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Like, if I were them, I'd be like, this is stupid,
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Jeff. Like, it is an odd choice that they could have just left Scotty on the ship in the story, and then nameless guy DeSalle, if you want to call him, is the other guy with Sulu. Maybe this because maybe we had a more important character sort of in the mix, because I think Sulu and DeSalle and these were all background characters. Even Scotty's kind of a background character in the original series. Like, he's a little bit more prominent, especially in season 3. He's kind of one of the 4, but at this point, it's all about Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. It kind of is throughout the whole show. But
it's all about Kirk.
It's all about Kirk. A little bit about Spock, and even less about
McCoy. A little bit about Spock. McCoy shows up when he can.
McCoy's there to go. Jim, what are we doing? Or the man is dead, or all those things, right? But I just love that whole moment. I love that whole sequence with the Enterprise represented through like the thing on the chain. I don't know. That to me, that was something that always stuck with me, like the sympathetic magic, the voodoo doll of the Enterprise.
Yeah, it was great, and watching them bounce around the Enterprise again. Like I love the acting, the overacting on the bridge when they're flying around. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was good.
But coming back to DeSalle though, again, like they had 400 people on the Enterprise. That's what they always said, right? Crew of 400. So I always found it weird they go to the engineer to run the ship. There's nobody else in the command structure there. But
it makes more sense for Scotty, I guess, but less so for this guy to be left in charge. It seems like Uhura is actually probably the next best option, but she's not. It's the 60s, and they probably because the first pilot of Star Trek was thrown out because it had a woman first officer, so they were probably avoiding those kinds of things a little bit. And I guess who's left? Like who's a character we know?
That's
nobody. Yeah. Because like technically like LaSalle's or DeSalle or he's just a lieutenant. There's tons of these guys on the ship, so I don't know why he gets tapped, but he does. I think he does a fine job, I guess, like in what he's supposed to do. But him and DeSalle and this other guy Jackson, whatever stuntman played Jackson, I'm like, who are these big, huge football-looking guys in Starfleet with these jaws that like these big, broad, like chiseled jaws? Like they're very odd looking too with that like oily makeup on. Now I gotta like pull up a photo, but yeah, like sometimes like like certain actors in the 60s like that I'm not, they kind of look odd to me. You ever get that, guys?
That's a hell of a fall that Jackson does, though. I mean, that's not easy.
Right.
Almost looks plastic. The guy looks plastic.
Yeah, he does look plastic. Like I should.
In the picture, he almost looks like he's not a person. It almost looks like he's
He looks like a dummy almost.
I don't think that's a real person.
It is.
No, I don't think it is. I think
right.
they subbed a dummy in, and I think that's a dummy.
You think that's a dummy?
That picture of him, that we're just looking at it right now.
Well, if you notice in the bottom left corner of his lip, like it does look like I don't know, like we pointed out when we were watching. Like I thought it was just a scar, but maybe he's onto something here. I don't know.
Well, he definitely has a wig.
He did. That's a wig, right? I was like, why do people have these weird haircuts in the 60s too? But
it almost looks like a dummy, like a wax museum guy.
Yeah, well, it's and the makeup was back then like just the standard makeup they give to every human was just so much oilier and so much thicker, and it looks like he got especially thick case here.
No, I don't think so. Can we Google that and find out?
I mean, it might be in fun facts, but yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, and what else in the plot is worth mentioning? So eventually they escape from this, and sorry, I don't want to be late, but this is who Sylvia and Cora turn out to be. Just a couple of these weird-looking puppet alien things.
Kirk has no
The Kirk has no shame. Yeah, no, he tries to fuck.
This is what Kirk tried to get with, just so we know.
Just so
He knew, and he knew what he was doing. He didn't know exactly what they looked like, really, but he knew that they weren't humanoid.
So, like in reality, what was actually happening? Like,
Well, I think it's all mental, right?
Like,
I don't think like Kirk was actually physically interacting with this, but maybe, like,
I don't know.
yeah. So
Unclear. It's what
Unclear.
Does best.
Yeah, but but he got shut down pretty quick. He didn't get too far with Sylvia before she was like, "You just want me to use me," and he's like, "Well, that's what you want from me." Kirk doesn't like rejection too much. He tends to play hard to get when he gets rejected, and then, but you want me, don't you?
Yeah, he gets rejected a lot too. Can we talk about Korab's like death, or not even death? Incapacitation. He goes up to the door, and then the giant cat bowls over the door, and it falls on Korab. And it's clearly like the lightest. Like Kirk like hits it with his arm, and it like you could see it like it's paper mache. It's hilarious. and then then they do this blue screen thing where it's just like, the whole thing is hilarious.
Yeah, like I can't disagree. There's some bizarre things going on with like some of the, in particular the action, just how they execute the action. This particular set, the castle corridors, it's very cartoon, like you said. Like I think that this was more suited for Star Trek the animated series, perhaps. This story, or even just like how it all plays out, but I still like it. I don't know. I can't help it.
Yeah.
Jeff, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just thinking, when they were showing Kirk and Spock what they can provide, and they got the plate of jewels and the plate of, and then the food comes and that goes away, and then they get the plate of jewels. We don't need money in our society. Like it's just interesting to see how they rejected all that. But as usual, nothing can buy Kirk except for women.
No. Right.
But
women and old girlfriends, the same thing. But it's but we saw that, like most of the time he's pretty focused. I'm not cooperating with you. I'm not putting up with any of this shenanigans. We saw him in shore leave last week. He doesn't like when he doesn't know what's going on, unless Ruth shows up.
But didn't you find them just a little bit too complacent when they were being locked up in shackles? Like, okay, and they just got, they just got locked up. There was no fighting, done. And maybe
a little bit, but after after that first time that Korup transports them all to the room, and they kind of realize that
there's no fighting in.
That they're not necessarily going to get the jump on them in that way, or they're not going to be able to fight their way out, because twice they try to like get their phasers back and fight their way out, and both times they're thwarted. So I guess that's why they start playing along. But we had they also see that McCoy is they also brainwash him, right? In the series, not sure how.
Scene, by the way, my God, what a fight scene between Kirk and McCoy, and then Sulu comes in with the wah, and then like it's so like Austin Powers. Like it's like Kirk's like, okay, all right, let's go, and he has to fight Sulu too, and then Spock comes in and he's like, helps him out, but.
Right, I forgot about that part. Yeah, that was like we said, like all of that is kind of out of there. But once they finally get they get the transmuter, right, and they smash it, and that's when the illusion collapses.
Yeah,
and that's it. Then the two little aliens die. Korup and Sylvia just die, and that's the end of the story.
What I want to know.
What do you say?
Unclear.
How did the two little aliens carry the transmuter?
How did they carry? Yeah,
I hadn't thought of that, because the transmuter doesn't change, right? After they smash the illusion.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think so.
Doesn't change size. Yeah. Like there's a lot of logic and weirdness kind of going on in the episode. Maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe it was all to distract us with the occult. Which and with witches
there's a lot of occult imagery, especially the basic Korup is like grand wizard, like playing off pretty thick.
Cat,
Black cat, skeletons, ghosts,
illusions, gems,
dead guy.
But the dead Korup was alive at the end of the show.
He wasn't dead. He was just incapacitated by the big paper mache door.
Oh.
Which was, like what was actually going on, very unclear. But it's all smashed, and then they beam up, and that's it.
After he smashes it, there is no transmuter. He's just holding his phaser.
Oh, okay. So then, that's good. That makes more sense. All right.
Can you, assuming that this would be, Kirk would have to write his report on what happened here. Like, can you imagine the Admiralty having to read this stuff? Like after last week's episode, we saw a rabbit that was running down a hole, and now this episode,
they didn't air back to back, but for us, let's say they did, and so guess what? Last week when we were running away from rabbits and samurais and whatever, now we're being chased by witches and ghosts and wizards and familiars and demons.
Also, notice that there's no captain's log at the end of this episode. It's like captain's log. tried to have sex with a weird turkey little thing, but that didn't work out. So I smashed its little wand, and then everything was fine.
And we had a giant cat, and there was witches. Yeah, it was all going on.
Just an average day in Starfleet.
That's for
Well,
sure.
that's how it goes.
Dave. Mike Barrier.
Who played DeSalle?
Mike Barrier.
Is that somebody I should know?
I don't think he's famous.
He's famous now.
All right. Well, Jeff, do you have fun facts?
I do have fun facts. Okay. A detailed metal prop miniature of the Enterprise was created for this episode. I mean, we didn't really talk about it, but remember when they put it in like the like encased
candle?
plastic, and then it was like a force field around
Yes.
the ship.
Right. First,
Body.
it's just a ship, and then after they burn it up or whatever, then they put it in
Everybody starts sweating. Like
in plexiglass.
What did they make the cast do? Were they like, everybody go run 3 laps and then come back, get into your uniform?
How did they get them so sweaty?
Yeah.
For the scene, I don't know. Like, I guess that's a makeup technique. I guess they sprayed them probably with water or something. It is convincing though. They're like, when Chekhov's like, we're burning up, and the whole thing. But
oh yeah. So okay, like you said, you already kind of mentioned a fun fact there, Dave. But first appearance of Pavel Chekhov, though not the first one to broadcast. That goes to a mock time. Notice that Walter Koenig is still growing his hair out, so then he had to wear a wig. So we already mentioned that as well.
right, because he was meant to appeal to fans of the Monkees, I believe. Right. That's why they brought him in.
Is that right? Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Huh. That actually makes total sense when you think of the monkeys back then.
Yeah, and he looks like Davy Jones.
Davy Jones. Yeah.
James Doohan lost his middle finger during World War II. Most of his scenes are shot to hide it. However, it is very noticeable in this episode, especially when he's holding the phaser and like pointing it at Kirk and Spock and Bones. So you can kind of see it in a few scenes. Like 2 of his fingers are gone, basically.
It's just one finger, right? Or is it 2?
No, it's like 1.5.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice it. Like I don't look at that, I guess, for some reason, or I've never.
Yeah.
You'll have to go back and check that out, dude.
I will.
Scotty's only dialogue is the statement, "Everything's vanished." Oh, I'm gonna have to bring it on Star Trek Radio Theater for that. Sulu doesn't speak at all. He simply nods yes and no when queried by Kirk, and later cries "Aha!" before engaging Kirk in hand-to-hand combat.
I can get Michael Chan to pre-record his "Aha."
Yeah, tell him to. Yeah, you gotta go get that. In this episode, the title "Catspaw" is a term that describes a person used by as another as a dupe. As McCoy points out, Scotty and Sulu are catspaws to lure the crewmen down.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 witches are iconic characters from William Shakespeare's Macbeth, a play which inspired frequent allusions throughout this series.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I first read Macbeth, which was after I saw this, much after, and I was like, wow, like Star Trek was really ripping off Macbeth, and Gargoyles also did it, the cartoon at the time. So 3 witches, and I gotta say that the makeup they put on these actresses was amazing.
It was good. That was great.
Yeah. They didn't. That's where they really invested. They're like, we can make someone look.
They invested in that. They brought them over from another show, I bet.
Yeah, probably. Do you know anything about the witches, Jeff? What was their story?
Yeah, there's a couple fun facts here. So it says Korab and Sylvia refer to their leaders as the Old Ones and imply that they are close by. Horror writer H.P. Lovecraft referred to the inhuman gods in his short stories as Old Ones. Their being nearby was standard fare in his writings. Episode author Robert Bloch was a friend and disciple of Lovecraft. A simple reference occurs in Bloch's Star Trek, What Are Little Girls Made Of, 1966.
Who, the writer of this episode, was a Lovecraft disciple?
That's what it says. Robert Bloch or Bloch. Yeah. So that, so
there's that new show that's out now, like the Lovecraft Nation. It's all about like the Lovecraft stories. I haven't checked it out, but I heard it's excellent.
Is H.P. Lovecraft like an occult person?
Yeah, he's been in Supernatural, the TV show,
right.
as right? Like he's kind of a famous science fiction occult writer / expert.
So that makes a lot of sense why this episode has so much.
Has all that in it. Yeah, okay.
The three witches seen toward the start of the episode were intended to be shown as floating severed heads. Hence the reaction from the landing party at their appearance. The characters wore black turtlenecks against a black backdrop with shining light directly up into the face. Unfortunately, the effect did not work, and the turtlenecks worn by the actors can clearly be seen even in the remastered version of the episode. This oversight is still present. So
I never thought that they were just heads. I knew that they had turtlenecks.
Yeah, but they were trying to they thought it was going to work, but there was too much light probably, so you could see all the black clothing.
Right.
Okay.
That's a good one right
Why
there.
don't you read it then?
I'll say so. Korab, his name was Theodore Marcuse. He died in a car accident 1 month after this episode.
Oh. After it aired or after they filmed it?
It was cursed.
Yeah, after it aired. Yeah.
The episode demanded a sacrifice, I guess. I mean, that's
Yeah, it was
That's what
cursed.
they said. Like, and I think he's an interesting character. Like, I think his performance is fine. Just like some of the weird close-ups he gets though at certain moments, right? Where like Sylvia's like staring him down. Did you notice that? Like it just like the angle of the camera changes to look right at Korab while he's like, don't squash me, Sylvia.
yes. Okay, so
Here's a good one. Jeff.
read them.
The assistant chief engineer LaSalle was he was the fifth guy to be put in command of the Enterprise, and
Bring your mic closer. It's hard to hear you.
he was the fifth guy to ever be in charge of the thing. He appeared in 3 episodes. This was his third and last appearance. He was in the Squire of Gothos and this side of Paradise.
So more of a season 1 guy. Okay, but they brought him back for this.
Okay, so one of the cat's roars was recycled as the trademark growl for Bowser in various games such as Mario Party and Mario Golf.
They Mario Party uses this episode's cat roar.
That's right.
Okay, wouldn't have called that.
Okay, Crewman Jackson was played by a regular Trek stuntman, Jay Jones. Jones is credited as Jimmy Jones, who some sources say was Jones's brother. However, in a 1996 retrospective interview, Jay deemed that the role of Jackson was played by himself as his first assignment on Star Trek and makes no mention of brother Jimmy being involved in the show. So,
But does it say he was played by a mannequin? Okay.
No, I can't say that. This is Sulo's only non-speaking appearance in the entire series. Probably because, like I said earlier, he was probably like, "Don't put me in these ridiculous episodes unless I'm going to say something."
But they put him in it anyway. He's in it. He just
Yeah, I
doesn't
know.
get to say
After this
anything.
episode, I'm guessing he was like, "If I'm not showing up unless I have lines."
Maybe. Yeah, I can't imagine James Doohan like this either. But I don't know. You do what you got to do for this episode, I suppose.
So the paycheck.
Yeah, still get it. You just get paid whether you say it or not. So
You actually don't get the same amount of money because if you don't have speaking lines, you don't get royalties the same.
what about the
Yeah.
aha that Sulu says though? I'm sure you got paid.
Well,
for
then
the
he might for that then. Then maybe that's why he threw that in there.
aha. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first episode in which a scope can be seen at the engineering station on the bridge. The science station scope was slightly altered for this episode. It is of a lighter color. The science scope used in this episode of the first season has a circular control added to its left side. This dial control, as first seen in this episode, will remain throughout season 2 and season 3. That's just a bridge design thing. Okay, the robe worn by Theodore Marcuse, who played Korab, was previously worn by Bob Denver as fairy godfather in a dream sequence in Gilligan's Island's Lovely Secret Admirer.
What?
That's correct.
I did not know that.
Right, they did pull things off from different
From
shows.
different shows, whatever was on the lot that day, and they're like, "We got this costume that we made for Gilligan's." They're like, "Perfect."
Okay, so Robert Bloch, okay, so the guy we mentioned earlier, based this episode very loosely on his own short story, Broomstick Ride. Bloch also wrote Star Trek, What Are Little Girls Made Of? In both episodes, the old ones figure into the guest characters' backstories. I guess he was a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft. He just had to get it into Star Trek.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily big H.P. Lovecraft, but I'm familiar. And this is the outfit in question that and the actor who died, as mentioned, a month after this episode filmed.
Oh, he would know that. That wants to know, if Dave, if you know what year this takes place in.
2267.
Yeah,
That's correct.
so that's 300 years after.
And some.
Yeah, 300 years in the future. It doesn't feel at all like 300 years in the future, but
It doesn't feel like it's 300 years from now. Yeah.
No.
Because I think this is kind of just indicative of what a lot of the episodes at the time were, because it's still like every TV show I think is a product of its time, right?
Yes.
But but like what they thought would be imagery and how people and how even men and women would relate to each other, it's ahead of its time, but it's not quite really making
it
sense.
still has limitations based on what time it came out. Like you guys mentioned it before, that Uhura doesn't have like a lot of the roles that probably she should have, you know.
Right, and this whole thing with the occult is not much of a thing anymore. And
Oh yes, it is. We just talked about Supernatural is filled
Well,
with it.
just
and
the
there's
taboo, though. Just
shows
like
that have
it being taboo and how they use it, and
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Like-
different. Yeah, but
right, like that the
wonder-
subconscious fears of men in the 23rd century are still ghosts and witches and stuff. And maybe, I guess, but it seems weird.
I'm not going to a black cat as my most fearful thing. I got to tell
Yeah,
you.
black cats, like that's not even something 50 years later that we're necessarily concerned
I'm
with.
not going to say that it is the most terrifying animal.
Yeah, goes back to the saber-toothed tiger. I love that line. That's one of my favorite lines. He's like the feline, this little house cat, but it could, it's the most fierce animal. It's the fiercest killer in the animal kingdom.
Oh, but wait a second. They did have the tiger last week too, or whatever episode we watched last week.
The most passive tiger we ever saw. Like remember, it was what was his name? Just like the blue shirt and what's her name that were running from the tiger. The tiger just like looks disinterested.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
That's a fun fact. Read that one then.
The voices of the little creature in the final scene are sounds made by newly hatched alligators calling for their mother. That's what it is.
So they're throwing in the lizard people thing. Okay. Okay, so we already did that one. The blue planet used in this episode as Pyrus 7? Yes, Pyrus 7, albeit a darker blue to illustrate the spookiness of the planet, was reused in subsequent episodes, representing Argolis 2, Sigma Iota 2, Troyus, Scalos, but they made Scalos a little later.
Same planet.
Yeah, they kept using the same planet. Okay, so Catspaw introduces two plot elements that were revisited in stories later in season 2. First, Star Trek by any other name, which I think we already covered, right? Explored the theme of extragalactic aliens taking a human form and then become inundated with human sensations. Second, Star Trek Assignment Earth revolved around an eccentric man with uncommon powers who was accompanied by an apparently intelligent black cat, which later turns into a black-haired woman. That happens in another episode?
Oh, Assignment Earth is the worst episode. Like
That's with, what's the guy's name in that one, Dave?
Gary 7.
Gary 7. That's it. Yeah, Gary 7.
Oh, it's the most it makes this episode look like so good.
Terry Garr.
Yeah, I was trying to watch. I was like, "What is this episode?" It's so weird. It's so weird. So,
I like that episode.
yeah, it's just They teach their own, but it's
This is the first of 2 times that Captain Kirk and Spock were cornered by a giant cat. The second was in Star Trek the Animated Series, Once Upon a Planet. So they did this again?
in the animated series, which is canon. Dad, have you watched Star Trek the animated series?
No, I have not, but I did watch
No, I'm not.
that new one.
The Star Trek Lower Decks.
Lower Decks.
Yeah, I got through about 5 minutes of it, and I said,
Okay, that show is not for you.
no.
Like, first of all, you would have to have watched The Next Generation at least.
But I've been to Cerritos, California.
Okay, well, you've been the USS Cerritos, which is the ship of that show.
It's outside of what's that? What part
It's like San Francisco. It's near San Mateo, I think, right?
San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah, but Star Trek the animated series it's like the last 2 years basically of their 5-year mission. They're voiced by Kirk, Spock, DeForest Kelly, Shatner and Nemo, like all of them, right? Most of them. And it feels largely like this, but it's cartoon. It's done in the 70s.
Finally, last fun fact. The ornithoid life forms were marionettes comprised of blue fluff, pipe cleaners, crab pincers, and other materials. The marionettes were operated with thick blue threads that were clearly visible. Most of this was corrected in the remastered version of this episode. So when Dad watched this when he was 9 years old, you could clearly see the blue.
Well, the episode I watched over and over again on is not remastered at all. It also had the blue little threads and whatever.
We didn't get a color TV till 1973, so this was in black and white.
But it did broadcast in color at some places, just not in your home.
Yeah.
If you had a color TV at that point.
Houses to watch TV. Very few people even had black and white TV or color TV rather.
Very few had color TV.
Yeah.
You had to be only the rich kids.
Yes.
Those damn rich kids with their color TV. Are you guys ready to rate this episode?
Yes.
All right. Let's get it going. All right. Jody did give me his rating, so I'm going to bring that in first. And Jody gave this a 6.
6. Ooh, I'm impressed. Jody actually thought it out of it.
Adam.
5. I didn't enjoy it. I was bored, honestly.
You liked it better than Shore Leave.
I would go
That's true. Shore Leave was awful. And I wanted to like it, guys. I really did, but no.
No, I think I just have nostalgia for this episode.
Yeah.
Dad?
5.1.
5.1.
Wow.
Just so he can outbid Adam on the Price is Right.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah. Jeff?
6.66.
Number of the beast.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
I'm going to give this a 7. I think that's what it deserves. And that averages among the 5 of us at, right? Did I count us right? Yeah, Jody's not here. At 5.9, just under a 6 out of 10. Has a 6.3 on IMDb, so averages that at a 5.7. So it's not the best. It's sort of not the worst either, but for sure. But it's sort of it's why it's not. There's a reason it's not well known as a Star Trek episode, I think. So thanks. And Dad, do you have an episode in mind next?
I do have one. It's called Mirror Mirror.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going for the big ones. This is my favorite episode of the original series, just so we all know. Oh yeah. It's the most it's one of the most original concepts. It was sorry, that's the wrong button. It allows it allows for all the cast to play different versions of themselves, and I think that becomes a trope in Star Trek that is used over and over again. Not just a mirror, but just
we'll have a lot to say with that.
Yes. So I'm excited to talk Mirror Mirror. That's going to be a big one. Dad, I don't know if you know, but there's way more mirror episodes that came after that, in the other Star Treks. It's not just
the other two didn't do it.
Not Next Gen, but Deep Space Nine did a ton of mirror, and so did Enterprise, and so did Discovery.
My question is, Mirror Mirror, we never really did find out, but I know we can talk about it next week. But was the Klingons good guys in Mirror Mirror?
We don't see them in that episode, but in that universe, yes and no. Yes, during like the 23rd century, they're kind of more good, but by the 24th century, they're kind of evil because they've teamed up with the Cardassians by that point.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, but sort of. All right. So I think we're
Universe.
What'd you say?
There's no real good guys in the mirror universe. They're all pretty awful.
Well, yeah.
There's some
Yeah,
good
just-
like, redeeming characters, but there's no like real good like race or like they're all at war with each other pretty much all the time.
They're all treacherous and they're all willing to cut each other's throats. And yeah, but there are more sympathetic. Like Quark in the mirror universe is very much not Quark, right? So there's a whole bunch of different examples.
Spock looks awesome in this episode you're talking now.
Yeah, the mirror costumes I love. I like, just the fact that he's got the goatee. We'll talk about it next week, but I'm excited to talk about Mirror. That's going to be a real great one to get into. So here we go. I got to plug all the stuff. So maybe I'll start with Super Mater Brothers podcasting. We're doing Big Brother 3 times a week, the TV show. If you don't know, it's where they take 16 people and they lock them all in a house for months, no TV, no phones, nothing, and then they just have to vote each other out kind of one by one. So Jeff and I and Jaemeel Robinson, we're covering that over on Super Mater Brothers podcasting. Sundays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So we'll be on later tonight, actually 9:00, as we're going to be covering the next airing. Also, on Live Long and Podcast, we have several podcasts coming up this week. We did Deep Space Nine last night. We were covering Duet there from the first season. Tomorrow we'll be covering the 3rd episode of Star Trek Lower Decks and reacting to that episode. And as we continue that on, Adam, have I asked you about Star Trek Lower Decks? I can't.
I've only watched the first one. I'm going to watch the second one right now and catch up. And I'll see. What time are you guys on tomorrow night?
We'll be on, I think 10:30. I think is when we go on,
right.
Because we have to do Big Brother first, so it kind of slows us down a bit. But I won't spoil anything. But the second episode, I think we all enjoyed more than the first episode.
I liked the first one, so I'm looking forward to it.
The second one really was making me laugh. So but I think you have to understand all the other Star Trek, especially next gen era stuff, to really enjoy the humor of that. So, and then Friday night, I already kind of said it once, but we'll be back to talk about this episode. Catspaw we're doing Star Trek Radio Theater, reenacting an episode that got 5.9 out of 10 from the panel tonight. So get ready for that. Which that just gives us more freedom to be as sort of hammy as we want.
Rate that too.
We don't have to be super loyal to or sort of be faithful to the source material. You can deviate.
No, yeah. Kevin's mom rates it.
Yeah.
Kevin's mom. Well, we get a lot of downloads after the fact and a lot of views after the fact,
Really?
but the live viewers are just a few of us. So anyway, by a lot I mean like a couple hundred, but like it's something. So anyway, I think that's it for tonight. I gotta get to Big Brother, so we're gonna sign off. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks to Jody who couldn't make it tonight, and we'll see you next week for Mirror